everybody, it's Joel from the Board Game Mechanics. Today I'm taking a look at Weak Defeat Strong. This is a party game for 4 to 8 players from SA Games. This one's not quite out there yet in the wild. This one's still, I would say, pseudo in development, a little bit in that early stages of being sent out some review copies. Some minor rule tweaks happening, it seems like, behind the scenes. But this one's looking to get on Kickstarter sometime in 2019. But this is one that's a fun little party game, a little different party game than what I've seen. A combination of some trick taking along with kind of hidden identities and player powers. How does it all work together? Well, I'll tell you right after we get a little rules explanation now. This is the game Weak Defeat Strong. Basically, let's go through setup first. What you get in the box is you get just a ton of cards. This is basically a neat little party game. You get a ton of cards in the box. There's different types of cards. Amongst them, you get location cards. So they're all places in Manhattan. Then there's also reward cards that go along with them. Every location card, you put out 13 location cards at the beginning of the game. Each one's paired up with a reward. So some of the rewards include drawing cards from libraries. Others include checking players' identities secretively. So these rewards, unclear in the rulebook at this time, or I think maybe it's still unclear if those are secret or if those are known rewards. You get that. Then you also get identities. So there's a bunch of identities in the box. So you hand out one of these different identities. There's 2 factions. There's the Star faction, which is like the Resistance. Then there's like these cyborgs. So they each get kind of special abilities. The one that's really important is this one, Felix. He's the cyborg leader. When you get him, you're going to get a bunch of extra cards. The extra hand of cards is going to include all of these cards. So you get a nice big stack of cards when you play this game. Like you get a nice fat stack of cards when you start playing the game. Like this is a possibility of like how many cards you would get, like 30 some cards. Because you're going to play the same hand of cards basically over 13 rounds for each of those cards. So these are the extra cards. So if you're Felix, you get these cards. Then we take these cards and add them to them. So you're very powerful because you get extra. These 21s are really powerful cards. There's like a strengthen ability, which lets you add +4 to your fire cards. Money. Wild cards. Wild cards, there's 2 types. I want to point that out real quick. There are these ones that can be used as alpha and beta cards. And then there's also just typical wild cards. Alpha and beta cards are kind of interesting too. So let's go through this real quick and look real fast. These are fire cards. So the thing about fire cards, so we have the alpha and the beta here. That's a beta card. So if you get a beta straight, you can basically defeat any combination of cards that get played. So these are your hand of cards. So on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to play a set of cards of a matching number. So let's look through these cards here. Let's see what we got. We've got some 13s. So in the first few rounds, you can only play cards numbered 1 through 5. So I have a 3 there and a 1 there, a 5, a 2. Oh, a couple 2s there. So let's go with these 3 2s. So I drop these 3 2s down on the table. These 3 2s go down on the table. So that's what I played on for my first hand there. Go ahead and zoom out a little so we can see that. So there's my 3 2s. Well, then the play passes to the next player. So let's say this is the next player's hand here. Okay, again, we can only play up to 5s, right? So in the first 3 rounds, we can only play up to 5s. The game opens up a little bit later. But the only thing I have to do is I have to increase that value of play. So I've got 2 3s here. I need to get at least over 6. So I need another 3 to do that. Oh, I do. So I can play these 9 right here. So there's a 9 combo I can play. So this would be the next player's combo. And it goes around until we all pass and you can't increase your value. And then you get to take one of these positions here. At the end of the game, whoever has the most positions wins. There's also like hidden identities. So if you do get Felix, like I said, you have that extra power. Then there's also abilities on these cards. You also get to use these abilities. Like this one has last shot. Can play any numbered cards after skipping his initial turn in the round. So you can temper basically your turn and go later, which is kind of a neat ability. But these are going to stay hidden unless you're Felix. So part of the game is trying to figure out, am I on Felix's team or who's on Felix's team, who's on my team, and maybe not trying to beat somebody. So if I thought that this was someone on my team, I might not try and drop this and try and defeat them. I might let them get that because they're on my team anyway. But I don't know if they're on my team or not because it's a secret identity game. You also are able to bluff abilities. So you can say that you have that last shot or you can have a wild shot ability or any of the abilities and not actually have them. So you can just do those things. without actually having to produce proof of that. So it's kind of a cool thing where you can say that you're something else. Unclear at this time what would happen if someone called you on your bluff. I don't know that there's anything for that. This game is really, it feels like it's still kind of in a beta version. You do get a lot of cards in the game. They're all basically these numbered cards. There's a control card, but there's, wilds in there. There's all kinds of just nicely made, bright cards. And this game is still it's still a little bit in development, I think. But the version that's out right now is definitely playable. You guys can get some more thoughts about what I think about the game right now. So this game is, it's a really interesting game. I like lots of things about this game, and I feel like this game has a lot of potential to be a really cool concept of a game at some point. I do like the fact that this game is a trick-taking game at its heart. So you're doing like a whole kind of teach you thing where you're trying to put down sets of cards that match, but then you can also trump them with other combinations of cards. And that's kind of a neat thing that's kind of present in games like Teach You. And it's not that you want to go bust and get rid of all your cards. You kind of want to it's kind of the opposite of that, actually. You want to be strategic with when you want to use those cards, because cards are a resource and you will run out of cards if you burn them all too quickly. So there are 13 rounds. In the first 5 rounds, or the first 3 rounds, you can only use cards 1 through 5. And then it opens up a lot wider and it gets crazier. Then there's also some player powers that allow you to kind of break the rules in a mild way, where you are able to bluff those rules, and you're able to say, well, this rule is kind of going to be flexible because I say I have this player power, and whether you have that player power or not, you are allowed to bluff that. So maybe you do, maybe you don't. So that player power kind of breaking thing is kind of neat, kind of a fun thing. I love hidden identity games. This one does have it. I'm not clear how the consequence exists if you bluff and you get caught. So there's really no reason not to bluff, it feels like, in this point in the game. So then let's get back to the core mechanic. Basically, I don't think I explained this real well in the rules explanation or rules overview thing that I gave you guys. Basically, when you have a set of cards you put down, let's say I put down 3 2s, I have 6 total in value, right? Well, I could put down 2 5s and have 10 in value. It went up in value, but it still follows the rules of being a matching set. So it's the value, the sum of the cards that matters, not the number of cards in the set. So that's a little unique, a little different. So you could play, a couple of 21s down, and that's going to beat almost everything, So this is just a game where you're trying to, keep buffing up that number, that total value. So it's pretty neat in that regard. It's like a hidden partner game where you don't really know who your partners are quite in the game either. So then you're trying to figure out who your partners are based on the fact that Felix character is known to everyone. So you're trying to say, well, who out there isn't really trying to take tricks from Felix? Who's not trying to beat Felix? And that person is probably aligned with Felix. And then you can kind of assume the rest of the players are with you, so you don't necessarily need to beat them. So really, you're worried about beating Felix early in the game, and then later in the game, you're trying to figure out who's helping Felix a lot and beat them. So it's kind of neat. The player power thing is the only complaint I really have about this. That I don't understand how we can bluff player powers but then not have to show them. So I think my only suggestion would be if they could somehow have a player power card separate from your faction card, that you could say, this is my player power. And then if someone says you're bluffing, then maybe they lose their player power for the rest of the game, or they lose a certain number of cards or something like that. So I think that would be kind of a cool thing to put in this game. Maybe a house rule that I would put in the game. The other thing too is this game says to hand out identities. It doesn't necessarily say how many to do. So my suggestion would be, if you get this game, would be at 5 players, hand out three resistance and 2 cyborgs. So that way there's 2 cyborgs and 3 resistance. You can kind of get a figure on who's who then that way a little better. Where it is the way I played it, where we just hand out random identities, it could have been 4 cyborgs and we're all on the same team kind of thing. So I think making it so that you're assured that there's a certain player count of resistance versus cyborgs. So at 7 players, we're doing something like 5 versus 2 or 4 versus 3. And at 10 players, it's I think at 10 players it would do that, because at 10 player or at 8 players, you would be maxing it out. So I think though that the weak defeat strong thing is kind of cool. The strongest Felix, he has extra cards. He's really powerful. You've got to team up and gang up on him and beat him. So then at the end of the game, after all the different plots of land have been taken, you divvy out the last 2 city places, and whoever has the most city tiles, city cards at the end of the game wins. So you've taken the most territory. the way how that happens is you have to have more tricks than Felix. So the team that has more tricks than Felix is able to claim those cards. And those cards do give you extra cards throughout the game, and cards are really valuable. So it's like the cards kind of the rewards really temper the pace of the game too. And that you want to play strong enough to get those cards and hope that you get the rewards that give you good cards to get into your hand, to add to your hand. But at the same time, you don't want to burn all your cards early and not have anything left at the end, because then people will get things really cheaply. So it's kind of like, almost, it reminds me a little bit of the money in For Sale. That if you burn all your money early in For Sale, you're not going to get a chance to like really bid well at the end of the game. So it's a pacing thing too with how you're going to play your cards. So overall, this game will be coming to Kickstarter, I believe, and there'll be a chance for you to get a better feel for it later in 2019. If you're really crazy about party games and you just absolutely love them and you like trick-taking games, this one might be worth looking into. It looks like it kind of does an interesting twist and combination of the two. The other thing too is it's like a trick-taking game that plays up to 8 players, which is something that you just don't see. So a trick-taking game up to 8 players, kind of a cool concept as well. I think this one, again, has a world of potential to it. There's just some clarifications in the rules that need to happen still, and maybe a couple little house rules or things that I would adjust personally. But it's a perfectly fine, perfectly fun game as it is now. And it's a definitely a change from your typical silly, like apples to apples style matchup, the A to B kind of like card laying thing. It's definitely a change from the game show type format, like guess the word kind of things that are happening with party games. It doesn't involve like the art stuff that you're seeing with like Telestrations or Bob Ross. It's kind of unique. It's a little different. I can't think of another game that really does what this game does. I really do hope this game gets that last bit of polish and hits Kickstarter and is a big success. But if you love, like I said, if you love trick-taking games and you think that you need a party game to add to your collection, this one would be one that I would investigate a little more and take a look at. So that's it. Not probably my personal cup of tea. Like it's not going to land on my top 100, but I definitely would say that if somebody said, hey, I really would like to play this game, I would give it a shot and I would play it. So it plays really quickly too. It doesn't overstay its welcome. You get this game over with in the same amount of time as like a filler type game. So this might be a fun game where if you had a group of, 8 people at two tables playing, 2 4-player games, and you finish at the same time, you guys wanted to come together and play that 8-player game. This would be kind of a fun way to do it. And I think this is a game that's going to shine higher at higher player counts. I haven't been able to play at the highest player counts yet, but I may update this review as we get more plays in, as I get more understanding of the rules and things like that. So this game, again, if you're really into party games and trick-taking games, maybe look at it at the rules and some of the different things that can happen with it. You can find this game on Facebook. I think you might do better to find SA Games on Facebook and try and contact them through that if you're really interested in this game. At this point, there is a Board Game Geek page for this game, but there's just not a lot on it yet. So that probably will be developing. So if you're seeing this in 2019, maybe by that time there is an official website listed on Board Game Geek. Maybe there are some instructions uploaded at that point. But I know this game's really still in development. So anyway, I hope you guys like this little sneak peek that we have here of the game Weak Defeat Strong. Again, this is I think a prototype I played. Or an early kind of, prototype, a pretty finished looking prototype. So I'm pretty sure that the components that you get in the end will look quite a bit different. It will be a very different game than what I've presented to you, potentially with rules even changing and things like that. So again, the concept is really cool. And I think with some tweaking to fit your own personal style, you could have a lot of fun with this game. That's it, guys. Thanks for watching. I've been Joel, and keep gaming.